The deaths in My Hero Academia symbolize sacrifice and resilience. Let's see how these characters met their ends and which sent fans into emotional turmoil. Star and Stripe, also known as Cathleen Bate, was the greatest pro hero of the United States of America. Star and Stripe admired All Might to an extreme extent because he had helped her and her family years back. Star and Stripe has the strong determination and will to demonstrate heroism and to save all, even if it was at the risk of her own life. Her quirk was to impose rules on her surroundings, to attain more powers, and manipulate new properties. To bring her quirk into practice, Star and Stripe had to first touch the target, then say its name out loud before explaining the rules she wished. She could impose 2 rules at a time. Star and Stripe's passing occurred while she fought against Tomura, but she could not sacrifice her close ally, Ethan Drive. Even in her last breaths, she sabotaged her own quirk to revolt against her enemy. The next character's death highlighted the hazardous nature of the struggle. Gyges is also one of the characters who meets a heroic end. He was one of the loyal and responsible guards at the gates of Tartarus. His quirk was having 6 arms instead of the usual 2. The Paranormal Liberation War marked his terrible death at the hands of Tomura Shigaraki, who used his quirk to destroy the section of the bridge where Gyges was. Gyges was a true hero, who reported the assault on Tartarus and called for a Code Red security lockdown after he watched his brother die in front of him. Thus, although he was not one of the main characters, his death caused us all pain and grief. The upcoming death starkly reminds every character of their perils. The death of 2 brothers, Briareos and Gyges. A sobering yet heroic tale. Briareos was the brother of Gyges and, like Gyges, a guard of the mainland gates of Tartarus prison. His quirk was having 10 arms and extra powers, including the strength to hold guns, enhanced strength, and more. His death occurred when one of the Nomu fired spikes from his body, and unfortunately, Briareos couldn't protect himself from them. The following hero had a fearless death that left a void that was hard to fill. The next death that broke us deeply was that of Crust. Crust was number 6 pro hero who died in the fatal Paranormal Liberation War. His quirk was to grow solid and robust hexagon-shaped shields from his body that he could easily control. He could expand these shields and even use them to cut through obstacles. He was a very emotional man, crying at everything, big or small. But he was not one of those with a weak heart. His nobility and heroism are depicted in his noble death, as he crumbled away while saving Eraserhead from Tomura's decay. Still, he does not hint at the slightest regret at his decision. As his body falls to pieces, so do the hearts of the viewers. The war cost the lives of defense heroes and the magical ones. Crust's death was regretful, but Enmakanagi's death is going to sober up the whole environment much more. Enmakanagi, or magic hero, Majestic, was a strong and kind pro-hero. Enma was an adult who took part in multiple wars and attacks to save people. His quirk was to make platforms from ring-shaped energy that could float. He generated them with his wrists, and the last time he used this quirk was moments before he died in the Paranormal Liberation War. Knowing that Makia would soon attack, he lifted the students on his rings to protect them. And after the attack, his body was found to be crushed. The students could not hold back their tears. The sacrifice of the next character galvanized the rest to fight with more valor. Master Driller was also a pro hero with the quirk of a giant and robust drill. He had a strong will and courage, which compelled him to fight for justice even when it meant his peril. His death in the Paranormal Liberation War was at the hands of Nomu, who took him into his mouth and unluckily crushed him in their jaws after getting his brain destroyed by Master Driller. This death shows Master Driller was a brave and a resolute man. The next hero to fall unexpectedly in the battle was Funkman. Funkman is a pro hero whose quirk is unknown, yet it has been seen he uses a gun to fight. Funkman's death was unexpected and happened somewhere between Tomura's awakening and the destruction of Jakku City. His corpse was left behind by other heroes who could only mourn his death while they evacuated the remaining civilians. Like Funkman, this next pro hero died off-screen and underscored the high cost of the war. Yamuri Kayama was also referred to as the R-rated hero, Midnight. She was a pro hero who taught modern hero art history at UA High. Besides having different abilities and intellectual nature, Yamuri had the quirk of exuding sleep-inducing aroma from her body and putting people nearby to sleep. She was killed during the battle because her resistance seemed inefficient. Her body was later found by her students and listed in the names of the casualties. Midnight's passing was one of the hardest for the students of UA. So hard to process even I'll admit. This one had me crying. The next one on the list whose death is going to get you emotional is that of Native. Native is a pro hero who is selfless and grateful, although he can be easily irritated. And his death was in the Paranormal Liberation War, where he was attacked by Nomu, who bit off his arm. Native is later included in the list of casualties. Native was also considered a false pro hero most of the time by Stain, who Native often fought with. But Native almost always won those fights against Stain. Adding to the list from the Paranormal Liberation War was that of X-Less. Eye-Gun hero X-Less was a pro hero whose quirk was a strong laser beam. This quirk allowed him to fire off beams from his eyes. Tomura killed X-Less in the Paranormal Liberation War, and during their fight, as soon as X-Less is about to shoot him with the laser, Tomura grabs him by the head and crushes him to death, which sends our hearts into our throats, and the moment will remain forever sketched in our minds. A surprise attack defeated this next hero. Eel Boy was a pro hero, killed in the Paranormal Liberation War. Eel Boy was a pro hero whose quirk included giant eel-like appendages that sprouted out of the back of his hands. They could bite and swallow and capture their opponents efficiently. And in the Paranormal Liberation War arc, he captured Himiko Taga and Mr. Compress with his eel quirk. However, his eel was about to swallow and secure the villains when suddenly, the double of twice stabbed Eel Boy in the back of the head, and he was killed instantly. The tide of emotion was pretty high at the death of this memorable hero. His death made everyone tear down in mourning. Sir Night Eye, or Mirai Sasuke, is a mentor to Mirio Togata and a former sidekick to All Might. His quirk was to see a person's future after he touched his forehead and looked into his eyes. Night Eye was gravely injured by Overhaul Spike and died in a hospital, a scene that made the heart grieve. He says, "So smile. A world without cheer and humor has no bright future." The people around him have eyes full of tears, as do the fans watching the screen. The death of the next character fighting for justice is so horrifying, it had to remain in your mind for days. Dajin Higawara, or Sand Hero Snatch, was a professional hero and a police bodyguard who fought Dabi on the highway. He was very sensitive to crime victims and their families and cared about them. His amazing quirk was transforming the upper half of his body into billions of grains of sand, which he could manipulate into anything he chose. In his last moments, he uses a lion face construct to confront Dabi. Still, unluckily, he gets engulfed by blue flames, and Compress turns him into a ball. He cannot save himself from this swift end, as he can only transform his upper body into sand. The next hero's death was unexpected and unjust. the highly sorrowful death of that of Compass Kid. Compass Kid, or Hokuto Hario, was a pro-hero with the pointer quirk. This quirk allowed him to point at anyone he wanted to see or look for. Compass Kid had often used his quirk to find villains in crowds. In the final performance arc, his end is met in an alley, where he knows that Number 6 is responsible for all the mess. Number 6 had to activate the bomber cells in his arms to leave Compass Kid in shreds to save his reputation, which was a horrifying act. This next duo made the loss of a hero more real and intense. Their death highlighted its effects on others. Waterhose were pro-heroes, and Kota Izumi's parents. Their quirk was water-based and strong enough to defeat an A-rank villain. They met their tragic end while defending a village from A-rank villain Muscular. They sacrificed themselves to save the civilians, and other heroes praised their efforts. But it left a lasting impact and a scar on young Kota. However, young Midoriya helped reverse that hatred and negative impact so that Kota does not resent his parents' death anymore. These next heroes died with a heavy responsibility for the future, ensuring this long war between good and evil will end by using their powerful quirks for upstanding causes. Lariat, or Daigoro Banjo, was a former pro-hero and the 5th holder of One for All. His quirks included One for All and Black Whip, which created black tendrils of energy from his arms. He has trained muscles and indomitable willpower, which he uses to repel All for One, trying to steal One for All from him. His death occurred from blood loss and fatal injury during the fight against All for One. In his last moments, Lariat transferred his One for All power to En Tayutai, the next holder of One for All. En Tayutai, also known as the Smoke Eater, was a former pro-hero and the 6th user of One for All. His quirk included One for All and a smokescreen that could generate purple smoky clouds to obscure vision. During his battle with All for One, a fatal wound awaited him. He was cut in half, and the injuries were too deep to recover from. But before his last breath, he passed his quirk to Nana Shimura. Nana Shimura was an influential character in My Hero Academia. She was the 7th user of One for All quirk and passed it down to All Might. She also was the former mentor of All Might and a close friend of Gran Torino, plus the grandmother of Tenko Shimura. Her quirks included One for All and the ability Float, which allowed her to float in midair. Her death was distressing in the battle with All for One, the archenemy of One for All users. She sacrificed her life to save her companions All Might and Gran Torino. Her companions are seen grieving over her noble sacrifice, but she remains firm in her decision. Which of these heroes made you cry when they passed? For more anime videos, click on the next one.